Welcome back to another edition of Six Borough Sports, your home for New York and South Florida sports. Today, we recap the Giants, Jets, and Dolphins in the 2025 NFL Draft. Lots of interesting moves. I think by far the Giants had the most interesting draft, but we'll get all into all of this in this video. But before I get started, I want to remind everyone to like, comment, and subscribe. We're trying to get to 100 subscribers. Thank you so much. So, I'm going to start with the New York football Giants having a very interesting draft. With the third pick, they went ahead and took Abdul Carter, following up one of the craziest draft moves, which was Jacksonville trading away like everything for Travis Hunter, which was absolutely nuts. But I think this was a great pick for the Giants. It's a very Giants move. Get the edge rusher, set the tone with the defense. Their defensive line is they got Burns, they got Thibodeau, they got Dexter Lawrence, and they have some players on the defensive line that they should be a really good defensive team next year. They weren't as good as I would have liked last year. I thought they were going to keep games closer by keeping the score low and get after the quarterback. And they weren't really doing that. Granted, I know they were on the field all the time, and offense affects defense. If you're on the field all the time, you're tired. But I'm really hoping that this year the Giants defense can take the next step with Carter. Um, Later on in the draft, they traded up to get Jackson Dart. That seemed to be the plan all along: get Abdul Carter and then get Jackson Dart. If you have to move up, you do what you need to do. Some people think that they didn't have to move up like they did because of there were no quarterback needy teams. However, there was some rumors floating around that the Rams are interested in Jackson Dart as a potential successor for Matt Stafford. Um, but overall, I like the move. Again, the Giants and the Ole Miss quarterback uh, connection with Eli is certainly interesting. But overall, I think it was a good move. I think him having him sit and learn under Russ and Jameis for a year will be great for not just him, but for the team in general. So they can figure out like their defensive and offensive identity going forward. And hopefully they can win some games. I don't think they're going to be like the best team in the division. Not a chance. I think they'll might be the third if they're lucky, or even second. Maybe Washington takes a step back and Dallas doesn't show up, but we'll see. Um, But Jackson Dart doesn't impact the team this year. He might play toward the end of the year, but this is mostly a rebuilding year with more talent than we've had in previous years, especially at the quarterback position. We really improved that, and we didn't do a whole lot. They also took a defensive tackle from Toledo. He's expected to make some impact in the first year, so that should be interesting. Darius Alexander. The pick that I love is Cam Scadaboo out of Arizona State. Cam Scadaboo is people are gonna like him on the Giants, and with him and Tracy, that's a good backfield, a good young running backfield. So I'm really excited about that. And then they finished up with an O lineman, a tight end, and a corner. These are just needs that need to be filled. Overall, I think the Giants did pretty well. You can debate if they needed to trade up to get Jackson Dart, but they needed a quarterback and they wanted to make sure they got the guy that they wanted. And I think they had a pretty good draft overall. Now they just need to put together a competent team and win some football games this year. Because if they don't, everyone's gone. Everybody's gone. Dable's gone. Joe Shane's gone. The whole team is gone. But I'm hopeful. I am hopeful. I think now they're building the team that they wanted to build because in their first year they had success with a roster that wasn't theirs, and then they were kind of stuck into it because we made the playoffs and we won a game. Now they have the real roster that they want to build together, and I'm more optimistic than I have been in previous years because in that previous roster, whether you believe that they could be a playoff team or not last year, I don't think could have ever won a Super Bowl. Um, and even if they got Saquon back, they weren't winning a Super Bowl. So I think right now they're building the team that needs to be built the way they want it. So very optimistic about the Giants. But team I'm not so optimistic about is the Miami Dolphins. Now, they had a pretty good draft. They really built up the trenches. They picked up Kenneth Grant, defensive tackle out of Michigan, and also Jordan Phillips, a defensive tackle out of Maryland in the third round. And then they also picked up a guard from Arizona in the second round. They're just building up the trenches, making them a much sturdier team. They got another running back in the later rounds and some safety and corner help. And another interesting pick was they took Ewers, whose father is an extension. I'm assuming it's his father's collection, has an extensive hunting collection. Jesus Christ. Um, but I think Ewers is a good pickup in the seventh round. I think there's value in that. I like that move, just as like a Tua security policy in case you want to move on from him, which they might need to do given their cap situation. This is like the last chance for this current setup. I think Tyreek Hill will be out of here. I don't think it's going to work because they can't win in cold weather, and they just when they were at their best, they weren't good enough. So yeah, I'm. This is their last chance, and they're in a serious cap situation. They overextended themselves financially, but hopefully they can retool and figure things out quickly. I would look into trading Tyreek to save some money, maybe during the season, or they'll just lose him in the off season. But things are feeling kind of stale down here in Miami. Hopefully, they can shore up the trenches. They've lost a lot of talent, and it's gonna be a rough year, I think, for the Phins. I think they'll be competitive. I don't know if they're a playoff team. I mean, last year they probably were a playoff team if Tua didn't get hurt. But even if they made the playoffs, I don't see them like being a Super Bowl threat with, the teams that are running around. And I think like the AFC West is going to be really good next year. Um, like the Raiders, I think are going to be with Pete Carroll. They got Geno Smith. They got Genty. Bowers has got another year of experience coming up. I think I think the Raiders are going to be scary good next year, but we'll see. But the AFC is going to be really tight, and I just don't see the Dolphins having enough juice with all their internal problems. Um, but who knows? If Tua is healthy, they are a completely different team, and maybe they do sneak into the playoffs. But again, is that what you really want? Do you want to just sneak into the playoffs? It's kind of like what the Giants did with Daniel Jones. It's like, all right, we made the playoffs. Let's just keep going. And it's like you don't want to do that. You want to build a team that can win a Super Bowl. You don't want to build a team that can make the playoffs. And I know what you're making the playoffs, stuff can happen, but usually there's something that causes your team to be a Super Bowl team. You don't luck your way into a Super Bowl win because of like an injury or someone has an off day. But yeah, the Dolphins. We'll see how they do next year, but they definitely did shore up their line problems. So they're they're in a stage of a kind of like a retool right now. They need to get their cap situation under control. And then finally, the New York Jets. The Jets did do anything outrageous. They had a solid draft. They filled their needs. I kind of would have liked it if I was. I'm not a Jets fan. Full caveat. Um, but I kind of wish they got a quarterback in one of the later rounds, but it seems like they're all in on Justin Fields, which is interesting. I thought Justin Fields is kind of like, the Russell Wilson Giants thing. It's like you hold the fort down while we, fix the team situation. But They got offensive tackle in the first round. They got Jason Taylor's son, Mason Taylor. Um, former Jason Taylor was a Jet for I think 1 or 2 years. Um, so that was a good tight end pickup there. They got a corner, wide receiver. They're just filling roles, safety, linebacker, and defensive end. They're just filling needs, which is good. They had a pretty good draft. Nothing mind blowing, but if they can get production out of these guys, then they had a really good draft. Again, I just think that if you don't have a quarterback that can win a Super Bowl, you should be drafting quarterbacks until you find one. You know what I mean? And that's kind of my opinion. That's why I was mad at the Giants last year. And I said in one of my videos, it's like I was waiting for like, all right, it's the fifth round, get Spencer Rattler or something, and they didn't. And I'm like, you need to draft someone and at least make them like a project because you need that, you need something developing, and they didn't do any of that. So now they have four quarterbacks in the room. I don't know if Tommy's probably gonna stick around, but yeah, overall, the Giants I think by far had the most interesting draft. And I think the Jets just filled like their roster needs very well. Um, but the Dolphins, I think, are like showing signs of a retool rebuild here. They're going to give it one more shot with these, trench players, but they have a lot of work to do to get out of their cap situation. But it's going to be interesting next year, I think, after next year, to see what these teams do. They're kind of all in different stages of turning points. The Giants this is the last hurrah for Joe Shane and Dable if they play terribly and they don't show much improvement and Jackson Dart does it, you know, like let's say Jackson Dart plays like in the late season and it doesn't show any signs and the team is terrible and only has 3 wins, then everybody's gone. The Dolphins, McDaniels could be on the way out. I think he gets one more year after this one, unless it's a complete disaster. But they need to step it up. They need to also, again, like I said, figure out their cap situation, and they might need to just grin and bear it and take the hit these next couple of years and rebuild. But I did like getting Ewers just as like an insurance policy. It's like, all right, well, Tua can man this whatever this potentially sinking ship is, and then if it doesn't work, then we have this Ewers guy who might be something. He looked pretty good in college. I don't know why his stock. I'm not a quarterback expert, so I don't know. And then finally with the Jets, they just, like I said, I wish they had got a quarterback because you don't know if Justin Fields is the guy. He hasn't proven it anywhere yet. So we'll see what happens with the Jets. But that's it for this week. I'd like to please remind everyone to like, comment, and subscribe, and we'll see you at the next video.